Another album ranking from worst to best here on Metal Ben's Chronicles, where metal lives. And today, we're going to be doing an album ranking for the legendary Teutonic German heavy metal band and pioneers of German heavy metal along with the Scorpions. Of course, I'm talking about Accept, originally formed by Udo Dirkschneider back in 1968 under the band name of Band X. You know, Michael Wagner, famous producer, was an early member of Band X. In 1976, they would change their name over to Accept once Wolf Hoffman joined. And they would be focusing on wanting a professional music career. And that's what happened. Anyways, let's get right into this album ranking. Coming in at number 16, we got the 1996 final album with Udo Dirkschneider on vocals. I'm talking about 1996's Predator. Musically, it's not a bad album. It sounds like Accept. I think the problem is, it's Udo himself. You can tell Udo Dirkschneider just don't want to be there. He's not putting in his best vocal performance, in my opinion. You know, overall, it's just not a very strong performance. And Peter Battez, the bass player, does lead vocals on a few tracks. First time he had done lead vocals on an Accept album since Breaker from 1981. Now, the title track Predator was covered by German heavy metal band Van Nuys on a Nuclear Blast Accept tribute CD. And I gotta tell you, Van Nuys does a way better job covering Predator. Now, Van Nuys has Peter Dirkschneider in it on vocals, who is the youngest brother of Udo Dirkschneider, for those who don't know. Definitely check out Van Nuys. Anyway, so that's number 16. Coming in at number 15, I'm going with the 1989 album. The only album they did with David Reese on vocals. I'm talking about Eat the Heat. Now, this album's necessarily not bad. It's definitely more watered down. It's definitely more glossy. You know, you could tell they were trying to go in a more commercial pop metal direction on this album. But you do have standout tracks like Ecstasy and Generation Class and D-Train, which are tremendous tracks. Stand for What You Are, it's a good track, you know. There's a couple gems on here. Now, vocally, David Reese does a great job. In a lot of ways, his vocals are reminiscent of Rob Halford in a lot of ways. So not a bad album, but it don't really sound like Accept. Okay, coming in at number 14, we got the sophomore album from 1980, I'm a Rebel. Now, this album's definitely unfocused. You can tell they were listening to the record label at the time because the record label was telling them to write in a more commercial vein. And that's what they tried to do, but at the end of the day, this album's really a disjointed mess, you know. But you do have some standout tracks on here like Thunder and Lightning, China Lady, and Do It. You know, No Time to Lose is a semi-ballady track sung by Peter Battez, but it's not that bad of a track. Save Me and I Want to Be No Hero have disco influences, which is very odd. And I'm a Rebel is a track written by Alex Young, the youngest brother of George Young, Malcolm Young, and Angus Young of AC/DC fame. But yeah, not a focused album at all. You know. And that's my number 14. Coming in at number 13, you know what? I went with Death Row. I'm honestly surprised I put this as low as I did because I really actually like the album. It's a heavy album too. I mean, it might be the heaviest album they had done up to that point. You know, at least heavier since, you know, the Restless and Wild days. But there's some good stuff on here, like Death Row. Sodom and Gomorrah is probably my favorite track on here. You know, you got Guns Are Us. What Else is a great track. Bad Habits, Die Hard. It's a throwback to, like, I would say probably Metal Heart. It's very AC/DC sounding. It's not a bad album, though. Pretty darn good, to be honest. I think why I put it at number 13, it's a bit long. And it's got 15 tracks, and it makes no sense to me to have 2 instrumental tracks at the end. That could have been Wolf Hoffman's solo tracks, potentially. If those 2 tracks would have been cut off, and it's not that they're bad, I think it would have flowed better as an album. You know what I mean? Coming in at number 12, I'm going with the debut album by Accept. Very bizarre album cover. You know, don't know how to really explain it. Now this album, you know, they're a young band. It's their first time in a recording studio. You can definitely tell this definitely has their rawest production when it comes to production. You know, the production's not good on here, but I don't think it ruins the album completely. But you can definitely tell the inexperienced. They haven't quite found their sound yet, even though I think this album flows better than I'm a Rebel, the follow-up album. Like Lady Lou's a great track. Sounds of War's an excellent track. You know, Free Me Now sounds a lot like a Motorhead track, to be honest. Hell Driver's a kick-ass, rockin' heavy tune. Yeah. Street Fighter's good. All in all, it's a good debut. You know, it is what it is. You can definitely tell they haven't quite found their sound yet, and they're not used to being in a recording studio. Okay, so coming in at number 11. Coming in at number 11, I went with Objection Overruled from 1993. The comeback album with Udio Dirk Snyder. Again, it's a pretty darn good album. You know, it definitely continues in the classic Accept sound. It's definitely a return to the heavier sound that they had previously on Restless and Wild and Balls to the Wall. I Don't Want to Be Like You. I Don't Want to Be Like You definitely could have been on Balls to the Wall. Definitely has that feel. Objection Overruled, the title track's a fast beginner. Slaves to the Metal is just a kick-ass heavy metal track. Probably my favorite on the album, you know. Protector of Terror is a killer track. Great album. And that album cover definitely is kind of like Balls to the Wall in a way. Just the atmosphere of it, at least. Anyways, now we are down to the top 10 here. Coming in at number 10, it's pretty damn hard to rank these, but I went with 2012 Stalingrad, which has Mark Torillo on vocals from TD Quick. This would be his second album with the band. This is a very good album, to be honest. It's very hard to rank these albums, but this one came in at number 10. Of course, you got the title track, Stalingrad. The Calling's a kick-ass track, you know. Yeah, man, you got Hell Ride. Just excellent stuff, man. Really good stuff here. Coming in at number 9, I went with the 2017 album, you know, The Rise of Chaos. You got some good stuff on here, like Analog Man, Kool-Aid. 2 tracks that are kind of a throwback to, like, the Balls to the Wall Metal Heart days, you know, stylistically wise speaking. You know, maybe Russian Roulette to an extent. Yeah, you know, the title track's killer, The Rise of Chaos, Die by the Sword, What's Done is Done. It's a great track. Again, it's a good album. I think a lot of people's complaint at this time, it wasn't really my complaint, but the album started sounding too much the same. I don't know. I like them all, but you know, that's people's opinions. I actually really enjoy that album. Alright, so coming in at number 8, I went with 1986's Russian Roulette, the very first Accept CD I ever bought, and this is still the original copy that I bought way back when. TV War, oh my god, what an excellent speed metal track. Definitely a throwback to something from the Restless and Wild days, you know, after experimenting a bit on Metal Heart. You know, you got Monster Man, which is killer. You got the title track, Russian Roulette, which I really like. Aiming High, you know. Heaven is Hell is an excellent track too. Heaven is Hell really reminds me of For Those Who Are About to Rock, We Salute You by AC/DC. Just listen to the intro. They almost sound kind of identical. Obviously the playing is alternated a bit between the two tracks. But if you listen to Heaven is Hell and compare it to, you know, For Those About to Rock, We Salute You, you can hear some similarities. Either way, it's a killer track, and this is a darn good album. Okay, coming up at number 7, we got the 2010 comeback album. The 2010 comeback album with Mark Torelli making his debut on vocals. And man, I played the hell out of this when it first came out. I'm talking about Blood of the Nations. Kick-ass album. My goodness, you got Beat the Bastards, you know, Teutonic Terror, kick-ass stuff. You got Pandemic, which is kind of predicting what was to come and what did come here in 2020, unfortunately. I mean, my god, you got Killing Thunder, which is killer. Or Rolling Thunder, excuse me, which is killer. You know, all in all, it's an excellent album. Again, another strong, solid album by Accept. Coming in at number 6. Number 6 for me would be the 2014 album, Blind Rage. Easily my favorite, or one of my favorites of the Mark Torelli era. Man, is this album good. I mean, what a great track Stampede is. What a great opening track. You know, just killer stuff. You know, you got Final Journey, which is an awesome way to end the album. Wanna Be Free, Trail of Tears. You know, to me, this is a very good album. And it's just a cry out type of album for me, you know. That says, you know what, we're sick of the division, we're sick of the tyranny in the world. We just want to be free and live in peace, you know? That's kind of the vibe I get through this whole album. It's like a concept. But it's a really good album. I really enjoy Blind Rage. Okay, we are down to the top 5. And that's right. The newest album came in at number 5 for me. Too Mean to Die. Excellent. Heavy metal album by Accept. Again, just good stuff here. And I just did a review for this album. You got Zombie Apocalypse, Too Mean to Die. You know, The Undertaker, the first single released off the album. Sucks to Be You is great. How Do We Sleep, you know, that's a very good track too. Yeah, and it's got a lot of sentimental meaning to it. How do we sleep when we know the world around us is falling apart? You know? But all in all, it's a great album. I really enjoy it. Yeah, it comes in at number 5. Right now, it is my favorite of the Mark Torelli, or the Mark Torelli era of Accept when it comes to the studio albums. Okay, coming in at number 4. You know what? We got to be a little controversial here. Don't get me wrong, it's a classic album. A lot of people would put it at number 1 or number 2. I'm putting it at number 4. I'm going with Balls to the Wall. It's a good album, don't get me wrong, it's classic. I mean, my God, the title track, Balls to the Wall, come on. London Leather Boys, you know, you got Winter Dreams, the ballady track, you know, Love Child, Head Over Heels, Fight It Back. I mean, it's an excellent fucking album. I think for me it just suffers from being a bit overplayed, I guess. But again, I love it. Don't gotta talk about it much more, but that's my number 4. Coming in at number 3, we're going to be more controversial, but I really, really like this freaking album. I like it over Balls to the Wall. 1985's Metal Heart. That opening track is just killer, man. I love it. And I love the mid-break where Wolf Hoffman's just doing this awesome guitar solo. Something you don't hear much of in metal anymore, you know. You got other great tracks like Midnight Mover, Too High to Get It Right, Up to the Limit, Dogs on a Lead, which is very AC/DC sounding. And my favorite track on here, Bound to Fail. Killer track, killer heavy metal track. Yes, so that's my number 3, Metal Heart. Coming in at number 2, you know what, I'm going to go with the 1981 album, Breaker. The album where Accept found their sound, their 3rd album. I mean, what can I say? Breaker, the title track, let alone, to me, it's probably one of those tracks that influenced European power metal. You know? You can definitely hear it. The speed. The classical harmonic guitar leads, you know? The double bass. You got other tracks on here like Starlight that are killer. You know, Run If You Can. And the controversial track, Son of a Bitch! You asshole son of a bitch! You know, killer stuff, man. Great album. So yeah, Breaker is my number 2. By the way, this has both I'm a Rebel and Breaker on it. It's a CMC International release that I got years and years ago. If you're wondering why I might have accidentally showed that instead. That's my number 2, and obviously, you know, we all know what number 1 is. That's right. We all know what number 1 is. I couldn't ignore the fact that this is their best album. Probably their most influential album. I'm talking about the 1982 album, Restless and Wild. The title track, Restless and Wild, was the very first Accept song I ever heard way back in the late 80s on a heavy metal compilation cassette tape. You know, back in the 80s when they had those old heavy metal compilation cassette tapes like Thrash Metal, Metal Masters, and whatever else they had back then. But my God, what more could be said about this? You got killer tracks, like the obviously legendary epic opening track that has that goofy polka intro. Then all of a sudden, you get this Shriek from Hell vocal from Udio Dirkschneider, and it just builds into the very first, one of the earliest examples of a thrash metal song. Being fast as a shark, just straight up speed, double bass. You know, definitely one of the fastest tracks of its time back in 1982. You got the title track, Restless and Wild, which I just talked about, you know. My God, you got Demon's Night, which is killer heavy track. You got the track Neon Night, which is very good, not to be confused with Black Sabbath's Neon Night. And the epic closer, Princess of the Dawn. What a killer album, man. And I love the apathetic Shake Your Heads. You know, that's a killer track too. That's my number 1, Restless and Wild. And that's my ranking for the 16 studio albums by legendary German heavy metal band Accept. Alright guys, keep it metal. And on Thursday, we're going to be ranking the Iron Maiden albums live here on YouTube for an episode of Damaged Chronicles. So stay tuned for that. Keep it metal.